The US trade team has arrived in Shanghai for talks with their Chinese counterparts, but expectations for the meeting are low. Huawei remains at the centre of talks. This morning, the company reported a 23% rise in first-half revenues to just over 401 billion yuan. That's $58 billion. The company says that difficulties ahead could affect the pace of growth. Huawei chairman Liang Hua sat down with Bloomberg Markets China Open co-anchor Tom Mackenzie this morning. Here's a snippet of that exclusive conversation.
We don't know when the U.S. will make the decision on Android and when that decision will come. So we have to make preparations for our products. We will evaluate our strategy for the overseas market. If we are not able to use Android for our new smartphones, we have the ability to develop our own operating system and ecosystem, which would become the basis for our services to the customers.
That was Huawei chairman Liang Hua speaking exclusively with Bloomberg's Tom Mackenzie. And Tom joins us now. Great work, Tom, and great to have you on the show. What do you want to highlight from your conversation with Huawei's chairman?
Well, you mentioned the $58 billion in terms of revenues that they notched up in the first half, growth of 23% on that front. The real key takeaway from this exclusive interview was that the chairman expects that growth to continue into the second half. He actually thinks that growth for the year of 2019 is going to top that we saw in 2018 when we saw revenues of about $105 billion US, more than, by the way, Alibaba and Tencent combined. So it is huge and significant, particularly given that this company faces, of course, pressures, major pressures from the US. There's the blacklist blocking many of the big tech companies from supplying components and software, as you heard there, to Huawei. And then, of course, there's the ban in the US and the pressure campaign from DC for other countries to block out Huawei as well. So despite that, they notched up pretty strong earnings. The question is, how sustainable is that going forward, given the pressures that I just outlined?
Absolutely. And of course, going forward, what happens with regard to Huawei's 5G rollout? Did the chairman say anything with how the US pressure is affecting that?
Well, he says that, in fact, in terms of 5G, they haven't seen a major impact. They've signed 50 5G contracts. They've supplied about 150,000 base stations. They say they've got pretty much the components, the chips in place for the 5G, the networks part of the business. It's the consumer division that faces that pressure, and he was pretty frank about that, and hence the soundbite there regarding Android, because if they roll out their new devices in the second half of this year and they can't use the Android interface, then that is a real problem, particularly for their international customers. And currently, it's the consumer division that provides more than 50% of their revenue. So that's the real pressure point. The 5G seems to be sustaining itself for now. But again, the question is, how long can this go on for, and what Trump decides in terms of easing up on any of these curbs?